I was watching Seinfeld the other day, and in the episode The Parking Space, we see George argue with Kramer's friend Mike over a parking spot in front of the building that Jerry lives in. New York is infamous for being a city where parking spaces are hard to come by, which is also the premise of Jerry's bit in the episode, but we'll come back to that in a bit. As George begins to reverse in after boasting to Elaine about his amazing parking skills, Mike goes into the spot nose in, and both cars are now blocking each other since neither is willing to give up the spot. Soon, the entire neighborhood starts to weigh in on the matter and argue amongst themselves, with even two cops unable to solve the issue. Let's get one thing out of the way here. That parking spot was George's. First of all, he was parking Jerry's car in front of Jerry's house. Second of all, you don't parallel park by driving in nose first. Reversing gives you the maneuvering ability to get the car parked in a tight spot. No way you're gonna get free car lengths in New York. But let's get to the real reason we're discussing this episode. Jerry's bit at the end. So he begins with,
I think because everybody in New York City knows there's got to be way more cars than parking spaces. You see cars driving in New York all hours of the night. It's like musical chairs, except everybody sat down around 1964.
Okay, so far, so good. Yes, exactly.
The problem is, car manufacturers are building hundreds of thousands of new cars every year. They're not making any new spaces. That's what they should be working on. Wouldn't that be great? You go to the auto show, they got that big revolving turntable, and there's nothing on it. New from Chrysler, a space.
No. Fuck no, that is absolutely not the issue here. You don't solve car-related issues by adding more room for cars. That's just gonna make shit worse. Okay, we're gonna have to talk about induced demand and parking minimums. Let me just get the PowerPoint presentation set up. So, let's start off with induced demand. Usually when you say that term, car-brained people either don't know what it is or they just start yelling at you for claiming that it's a myth and that you hate cars. In reality, it's no myth, and it's not even that new of a concept. The term has been around since the 1930s. Also, I don't hate cars as a concept, but that's neither near nor there. What induced demand means is that supply itself generates more shortage. In economic terms, an increase of supply means lower prices, making it a more attractive product. When we talk about road construction, the same principle applies. When a major road or highway starts to exceed capacity, the knee-jerk reaction for everyone is to just widen it. Add another lane and you've increased capacity. Simple, job done. You fix traffic and now you can go back to your cozy office to drink coffee and ignore cycling and transit issues. Wait, what's that? The road is at capacity again. Well, that's because by adding another lane, more drivers see that road as a viable option for commuting. Well, what about another lane, and then another? It's an unsustainable cycle where diminishing returns become self-evident pretty rapidly, but still highway engineers won't think twice about demolishing whole blocks of housing just to squeeze another lane in. Now let's apply this concept to parking. Say that you have a building where 10 households live. Say it's a building built before automobiles were common, so not that much parking out front. At some point people start getting cars, but only some of them since this is the city and there isn't much parking around. So now 4 out of 10 households in this building have cars, which means that most of them can't find a spot near the building and have to look somewhere else. But suppose something happens to the building next door, causing it to be torn down, and now there's apparently ample parking for these car owners. Great, problem solved. Well, now the rest of the households in the building get cars, and immediately the parking lot is exceeding capacity, and other people in the neighboring buildings would like to park there as well. And so begins a hypothetical, endless cycle of buildings being torn down in order to make more rooms for cars to park in. You might think this is something that's never going to happen, but it already has. This brings us to parking minimums. Essentially, they are requirements, as dictated by a municipality's zoning ordinance, for all new developments to provide a set number of off-street parking spots. Also, this isn't just a North American phenomenon, but general parking minimums vary from city to city, but in the example of Tallinn, every new residential apartment building is required to provide a set number of parking spaces per apartment. Depending on the part of the city, this can range from just one parking space up to two. However, since space becomes ever more a premium the further you get to the center of the city, it means that every new apartment building in the city center has to have one or two levels of underground parking, which is another requirement in the local regulations. Tallinn also offers a yard improvement allowance, which is essentially just a bunch of cash for apartment associations so they can turn their pre-war backyards into parking lots. Apartment associations in old Soviet era apartment buildings usually expand their parking lots into already poorly maintained greenery between the buildings, which could be utilized to create proper green spaces, but, well, people want to stash their cars somewhere, right? And honestly, who can blame them? Car ownership is essentially incentivized through parking minimums, automobile traffic street layouts and intersections, and general attitudes by city officials, who for decades have pandered to car owners through election campaigns and policy, ensuring that personal cars, not transit nor non-motorized traffic modes, are the most convenient way to get around the city. So, when Jerry in his outlandish joke suggests that car companies sell you a parking space, well, where the fuck does that parking space come from, Jerry? When it comes to modern urban planning and more specifically traffic issues, the underlying problem is the car itself. It's counterintuitive to try to solve traffic issues by adding more traffic. So instead of regulating parking minimums to each new residential building, why not make sure that the residents need not rely on cars for getting around in the first place? For that, we need to destigmatize public transport and improve quality and frequency of service, and most importantly, get rid of parking minimums. Thanks for watching. I know I planned this video back in October and it's rather short, but some life events happened, and so I've spent the last 6 months watching Star Trek. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll have another City Skyrim upcoming soon, or maybe something else, I don't know.